I've learned after 50 years in the business that all governments are bad, all, and that the most dangerous government is the government closest to me. The biggest actual loss I ever suffered from political risk occurred in something called Viceroy Mines. We made a discovery, sadly, 7 miles on the wrong side of the California-Nevada border. So my biggest political risk loss in my life took place in California when I lived in California. So I think there are no good jurisdictions.
In a recent illuminating discussion, Rick Rule delves into the intricate dynamics of political risk within investment landscapes. With over 50 years of experience, Rule offers a sobering perspective on government involvement, cautioning investors against complacency regardless of jurisdiction. Drawing from personal anecdotes and historical parallels, he challenges conventional notions of safe jurisdictions, advocating for a nuanced understanding of political risk. Rule highlights the paradoxical acceptance of theft and corruption within familiar cultural norms while vilifying similar actions in foreign contexts. Stay ahead of the curve with invaluable investment insights by liking, sharing, subscribing, and turning on post notifications for our channel.
I look for things that are out of favor and companies that exhibit value. In terms of out of favor, there's nothing that's quite out of favor enough, with the exception of coal. And investors who aren't invested in coal, that is to say, natural resource investors who aren't invested in coal, I don't know, they ought to think about going to work for the Postal Service or something. A little less hated, but still very, very, very cheap, would be oil and gas. I'm not an expert on the oil and gas scene in Australia, although I used to play that game 20 years ago. But certainly the North American oil companies, and for those people whose timeframes existed to 2025 from 2024, the North American natural gas industry, very, very simple and very, very cheap. These companies are making a lot of money at current prices, a lot of money. But because they're viewed as being politically incorrect, the institutional holdings of these companies are decreasing, means that the stocks are getting cheaper. Meanwhile, the companies themselves, some of them at least, are deferring sustaining capital investments, which means that oil supplies will continue to be tight, because if you don't invest money, you can't produce. So names as unchallenging as ExxonMobil, the best capital deployer in the oil and gas space, maintaining, in fact, increasing sustaining capital investments with a discovery in Guyana that's large enough to move a company the size of Exxon, with a commitment to increase returns to shareholders by 14% this year. This is simple. If you have more guts, North American natural gas, really depressed, really hated right now. But if you look at the arithmetic, natural gas in West Texas commands about $2, $2.25 per million BTU. That same gas landed in Tokyo or Rotterdam commands $8 or $9 a million BTU, and it takes between $1 and $1.50 to get it there. This is a stupid arbitrage, truly a stupid arbitrage. And mercifully for me, nobody cares. Of things perhaps of more use to Australians, don't look for what's hot, look for what's not. Nickel. They're shutting down primary nickel production all over Australia. And Australian investors are starting to believe that nickel's a four-letter word. The nickel price collapse is very easy to understand. The Indonesians permitted massive laterite nickel production in Sulawesi. By the way, I flew over those mines a couple of months ago, and they are disgusting. The environmental degradation that's taking place as a consequence of that is something that I think almost guarantees that the production increases that we've seen won't continue. And the second thing, of course, is a replay of what we saw in 1990, which is the Russians' dishoarding of nickel. So happens that the Russians have some use for money right now. And the consequence of that is that they're selling everything they have in the cupboard, including a lot of nickel. That selling abated last time after about 18 months. I suspect the Russians will run out of nickel. And I suspect that 2026 will be a superb year for nickel. Might be too early to get in now, but the point is, don't look for what's hot. Look for what's not.
And another,
Another
yeah,
wonderful example would be platinum and palladium. For the same reasons, the Russians are selling the stuff. The Russians will run out, and the prices will come back. Lithium has lost its glow, although I think the cost of capital is still too cheap for the industry. I suspect that the lithium doldrums, at least the equity doldrums around lithium, will get much more intense. But there will come a time when the big thinkers of the world suggest we won't need any more lithium. You know, when people look at it, they say, well, the price has fallen by 50%. Yeah, after it ran up by 500%. Can I go lower? Yeah, absolutely, positively. The point of all this, though, is to focus on what's not hot, not what's hot. I try to buy the best deposits I can, irrespective of jurisdiction. I've learned after 50 years in the business that all governments are bad, all, and that the most dangerous government is the government closest to me. The biggest actual loss I ever suffered from political risk occurred in something called Viceroy Mines. We made a discovery, sadly, 7 miles on the wrong side of the California-Nevada border. So my biggest political risk loss in my life took place in California when I lived in California. So I think there are no good jurisdictions. There are some better jurisdictions, WA probably being a better jurisdiction. Chile for 40 years was a better jurisdiction, but now the voters in their wisdom have chosen to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I would rather take technical risk, which is to say have a deposit worth stealing, than have a lousy deposit in a so-called good jurisdiction. The consequence of that is that I take political risk, and I've been punished. I I had the temerity to attempt to invest in Afghanistan about 20 years ago. Afghan American mining lost 100% of capital employed. On the other hand, I've been an extremely successful investor in Congo for 30 years. So I will take political risk rather than taking technical risk. I'll get some hate for saying this, but folks who look like you and me believe that money stolen from us by Caucasians in English, according to the rule of law, is somehow less gone than money stolen by non-traditional means, particularly by people who don't look like us. I think people tend to accept theft if it occurs to them in ways that are normal in their own culture. So when you invest for 10 years in something and you're right, and then the government puts in place an excess profits tax and steals 75% of what you were entitled to because of your foresight and investment, that's somehow not regarded as political risk. When companies report that they paid some African politician $70,000 in a Rolodex, or in a Rolex watch, pardon me, that's a bribe. But when the same company pays $10 million in a campaign contribution in the United States, somehow that's not a bribe. People have a very odd view, in my opinion, of political risk.
In today's engaging discussion, Rick Rule delves deep into the intricate world of investment strategies and risk management, providing invaluable insights for seasoned investors and newcomers alike. From his astute observations on identifying undervalued sectors like coal, oil, and gas, to challenging conventional notions of jurisdictional safety, Rule's wealth of experience shines through, offering a unique perspective that challenges conventional wisdom. His cautionary tales about navigating political risk and the nuances of government involvement serve as poignant reminders of the complexities inherent in the financial landscape. By emphasizing the importance of astute risk assessment and strategic decision-making, Rule empowers viewers to approach their investments with clarity and confidence. As we reflect on today's enlightening conversation, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on the latest insights from industry experts like Rick Rule. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found this discussion valuable and share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below.